Welcome back. My conversation with Dr. Bal Pawa I knew was going to be jam-packed, and so we are back with part 2. Thank you so much. We touched on so many things in our recent conversation: hormone therapy, women's heart health, alcohol use. Oh my goodness, benefits versus risks. I love talking to you. I learn so much every time I have this chance, but can we focus on sleep, stress, and sex? That was the title of an event we did a few years ago. It's probably got the most views on my YouTube channel. And I know that, you wrote the book, The Mind Body Cure, which is really about our relationship with and to stress and how it impacts women's health and our ovaries. What is your message around stress for women?
Wow, that's a good one. And the reason we have great conversations, you ask great questions and then it just all comes out.
I know, time goes by just like that.
So, the stress piece, it was so vital to get the message out there. As you know, I give talks and all of that. And then people said, well, why don't you put that into a book? And that's how the book was born. And funnily enough, we didn't cover a chapter on women's ovaries and stress, but let's just dissect stress for a second. So everyone on this planet will experience stress. Stress is pervasive. It's universal, and it's necessary. We have to have the stress response. Right. So the stress response is built in because we have this apparatus in the back of our brain called the nervous system. And that nervous system gets triggered when our brain sees something stressful. So it could be a saber-toothed tiger, and that's why it was originally designed, so you could fight the tiger, fly from the tiger, get away, or freeze. So fight, flight, freeze. Those are built in what we call, the stress response, because your brain sends a message to your adrenal gland. The adrenal gland makes adrenaline and cortisol, and that's what allows you to get out. What we don't talk about is if that stress response is on all the time, it's as if there's a foot on the gas pedal, and we're not supposed to be under stress all the time. But if we are, those hormones of stress wreak havoc with our tissues. That means it can wreak havoc with your gut tissue, with the brain that created the stress. It's not good for the brain matter. It's not good for the immune system. It's not good for your thyroid. And it's certainly not good for your ovaries. So that's where women who are under chronic, prolonged stress that is always there, they reach what we call the allostatic burden load. Homeostasis means getting your body back to normal. Okay. Allostasis, where you got chronic stress, childhood trauma. Then you get into your teens, eating disorders or bullying at school. And then you've got problems in school and stretch it. And that elastic band gets so stretched, it snaps. That's the allostatic burden. And so when that happens, what happens to the ovaries? I see women going through premature menopause. Yes. I see women having heavy, heavy cycles because their progesterone is no longer working. I see women who are having endometriosis. There's a lot that goes on in the polycystic ovaries. Yeah. So all of those diseases are manifested because the cortisol, the stress hormone, is so high, right? So for women, we need to know, well, what's the alternative? How do we put the brakes on? And that's why, I guess, the conversation that happened with TED people when they invited me to speak was because they thought it was an idea worth spreading. That you got to get this very difficult concept of the nervous system and teach it to people so that they can learn how to regulate their nervous system. And so when I did the TED Talk, and you've done a TED Talk, they take 18 years of your experience and research and say, well, put it into an 18-minute monologue. So I had to really think, how am I going to get this message out there? And so they helped me to say, well, you've got your nervous system. Think of that like an engine. Right. Now, what's the problem? I said, well, people got their foot on the gas. How do I put the brakes on? Well, what are the brakes? It's when we engage the vagus nerve. How do you engage the vagus nerve? Well, you do it through breath work. And so they helped me to devise the BMW Method, which is breath, mind, and word. And when you create those three things, you'll see women, their heart rate goes down, their blood pressure goes down, their brain waves change, and suddenly the hormones are starting to change. So that's the key. When you do breath, mindfulness, and speak a word at the same time, and I teach women how to do that, they start producing more serotonin, more DHEA, more growth hormone. So the whole hormone production shifts into rest and repair instead of fight and flight. And that's why it's so empowering to women to learn, one, they have a nervous system. Two, how to regulate their nervous system through breath work and mindfulness. And three, once they learn how to reset their body, then learn how to reset their neural circuits so they default to rest and repair, not to fight or flight.
And I have an and that I want to add to that list.
Let's add to it. You add.
We have to make sure we are not wearing our stress as a badge of honor.
Yes, absolutely.
I'm very much right now feeling empathetic towards 35-year-old me and 41-year-old me, which probably got me this gig. But every 35 to, and up woman who's tuning in today, stop. You use the phrase back burner. We can't put our health on the back burner and expect vitality in the long run by some magical, power that we're in charge. We're in the driver's seat.
And I wonder how much of our society has propelled us into this, that thinking, if you're a busy woman, you're an important woman. If you're a sleep-deprived woman, you're an important woman.
Oh my
goodness.
If
you can multitask and do it all and be superwoman, you're an important woman. And so we have to, extricate our worthiness from the doingness that we have with our society. And there's a greater demand on women that if we do more, we're worth more. And that's not so much for the expectation that's built up for men. And what our nervous system cannot decipher, they can't tell the difference between a saber-toothed tiger and a long to-do list. Right? Because your nervous system revs up.
Oh my gosh.
It says, okay, I got to do this. I got to do it well. I got to do it perfectly. I can't make a mistake. It thinks there's 10 saber-toothed tigers chasing it.
Right.
So you're still producing adrenaline and cortisol. So stopping to just be in the moment and create to-be list, not to-do list.
To-be list.
So to be more grounded, to be more mindful, to be more calm, to be in the moment. Those are, I think, the teachings that I give to women is that we're human beings. To be is the essence of who we are. And we're okay and we're enough if we just be.
Okay, so you're a teacher of this, but you're also practicing this in your own life. Can you give me like 2 or 3 tips that you have adopted for your own life? Because your plate is full. Your list is long.
Yeah, I do a lot. But, I think the secret to have, you can have it all. You don't have it all at the same time.
At the same time.
Exactly.
It's a good one.
I think what I would say the most important thing I've implemented in my life was the meditation. Meditation is the act of creating order in your mind.
Okay.
Right? And so starting my day with 10 minutes of just breath work and focus in what I call intention. What is my intention for the day? What is my attention going to focus on? Because wherever your attention goes, energy flows. And our neurons, they create habits, neurons that wire together, fire together, right? That's how neural circuits are formed. So women who've learned to develop really good habits, especially morning routines, they're able to manage their time better. They're able to manage all the stress in their life because they show up differently. They're showing up being more responsive, less reactive. And I think that would be the big aha moment to me, was executing those habits for the morning routine. Every single morning, I'll just spend 10 minutes before I talk to anybody, before I look at the phone.
Good
I'll spend
for
10
you.
minutes, go within. And the breath work looks like this, where you inhale through your nose, you hold for 5 seconds, right? That engages your vagus nerve. And then when you're exhaling, you're saying a word. And the word could be amen, it could be om, it could be peace, whatever resonates with you. But doing the BMW, the breath, mind, and word, which I teach on the TED Talk, is about creating that space. The mind is just clear. The mind is focused on the breath. And then you set your intention for the day. How do you want to show up? And my intention today was abundance. Having an abundance of energy, abundance of forgiveness, abundance of knowledge, curiosity, all of that was just what I meditated on today. So I think it's really important to reset your nervous system and start your day that way.
That is so beautiful. How does that affect our sleep?
Great question. See, you ask the best questions. The sleep, the cortisol pathway is really important for sleep. So if you think about how we evolved as human beings, we didn't have the light bulb. Thomas Edison invented the light bulb, and that was wonderful, but it really wreaked havoc with our sleep cycles.
Yep.
Because our sleep cycles are set with the circadian rhythms of the sun.
Right.
So when you wake up in the morning, when the light hits the back of your retina, it creates a reaction in your brain through the supranucleate mechanism. Those neurons in the brain then start the melatonin production. That melatonin is what you're going to need for the night, but it starts in the morning. And then the melatonin production ramps up. Your cortisol levels go down at night. So cortisol goes down at night, and then it starts to build up for the morning, so you're bright-eyed and bushy-tailed. So you have high cortisol in the morning, which we need, and low in the evening. Now, that's the norm. But look at us. We have phones, we have our laptops, we have light. Some of us burn the midnight oil. So those things disrupt our sleep, and stress disrupts our sleep. So things have changed a lot. And so North America has an epidemic of insomnia.
Yes.
Have you seen the recent studies on what people are spending on sleep labs and sleep products?
Yeah. And we did some research in the menopause chicks community
Oh, you
too,
did?
to show that, like, well, first of all, wanting to underscore the true definition of insomnia, because that was something I needed to learn. It was like, oh, I've experienced sleep deprivation. No, I actually experienced insomnia.
That's right.
And then, like, I think it was, 67 or 70% of women in my community are experiencing insomnia.
Yeah, it's insomnia. Sleep deprivation is rare, right? Like, those are the people who don't have an opportunity to get sleep. These are the moms with 3 kids working 2 jobs.
And hopefully that's very temporary and not
But most
chronic.
of us lie in bed. Either they have what we call initial insomnia, trouble falling asleep, or terminal insomnia, staying asleep. But most of us will say, yes, we do have disrupted sleep. And sometimes it's disrupted because of hot flashes.
Yep.
Sometimes disrupted because you're getting up at night to pee 3 or 4 times if women don't have good control of the bladder, right? So there are many factors involved, but sleep is essential for our hormones and our immune system.
The thing that hit me the most during that learning was that insomnia significantly impacts our quality of life the following day. So sometimes we're like, oh, coffee, oh, this, whatever I need to get through. No, it's actually your insomnia is impacting your relationships, your work, your productivity, your ability to do those things like caring for aging parents and so on and so on. It's huge.
So those are what we call the immediate effects of insomnia. But if you look at chronic diseases, and they say that insomnia raises the risk of heart disease.
I knew you were going to say
Alzheimer's, right? By quite a percent. I don't recall the exact percentage, but insomnia is very much a cofactor for many of those chronic diseases.
It makes sense. And we're talking about men and women when we say
for
that,
men
right?
And women.
For sure.
So if you look at sleep, though, what happens? Everybody thinks, okay, you go to sleep and your brain goes offline, but your brain's actually very active during sleep.
Right.
That's when the street cleaners come in, right? Because you have this fluid that circulates from your spine to your brain, the cerebral spinal fluid. So there's a mechanism of cleaning that's happening. So it removes the toxins from the brain. There are different hormones. And your immune system is inextricably linked to sleep as well. So when you sleep, you're recharging the immune system. And the immune system is so important for disease, for inflammation.
Right. Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
The last one. Tell us about the cockpit. You know, women's sexual desire looks like the cockpit of an airplane.
That's the analogy I use, because for men it's so easy. You know, if they have erectile dysfunction, the company came up with Cialis and Viagra, and it's an on-off switch. So we have an on-off switch for men. Penis meets vagina, everybody's happy, right? So with women,
50% of us might be happy.
All the men are happy. With women, it created quite a problem, because here are, the men now got this wonderful drug and they can go for hours. But women, how do you fix libido in women? And women's libido is not an on-off switch.
Right.
It's very complex. And so libido is born, it's a sophisticated system. It's like the cockpit, as you say. One, she has to be well rested, good sleep. Two, because a lot of women say, well, should I have sex or go to sleep? I think I'll go to sleep, right? And so there's the sleep factor. Two, there's the distractibility factor. Women are constantly making to-do lists, because they're so busy having to do so many other things that they're not just concerned about immediate pleasure. They're thinking, okay, the garbage has to be taken out. I got to pick up the dry cleaning. So there's a constant to-do list. Their brain is busy. So if their brain is busy, they're what we call left-brained. But the desire is born in the right brain. So if you want to go into right brain, you have to be in rest and repair mode with your nervous system functioning. That's when breeding in animals happens, when they don't, when they're chasing a zebra, they're not thinking about sex, right? A lion. They only breed when they're full and everybody's calm and everything is cool. That's when things happen.
Right.
When the females are receptive, when there's no danger or no to-do list. The third thing is about the hormonal piece, right?
Right.
And so we know that as hormones change, women will have increased libido in around their ovulation. And then it goes down a bit just before their period. And after menopause, libido goes down. If you take ovaries out from a woman, her libido's lower.
Right.
So testosterone does play a role. So if everything is okay, then the woman has good libido. And that's why we call it the cockpit, because you have to turn on so many switches to have her be engaged. And libido, you have to break it down into three pieces too. It's not just desire. It's the ability to have orgasm and the ability to have arousal and lubrication, right? And that's where the hormones come in.
Yeah.
Because the hormones help with the lubrication, they help with the arousal, but the desire is the complicated piece. That's testosterone, rest, sleep, pain, to do things. All of those things impact desire.
It's fascinating to me when we talk about sleep, stress, and sex, how I think about the questions that come into my community and how each of us might prioritize or reprioritize those three things. I was speaking with another physician recently who was like, it wasn't until desire went down that a female patient of hers and her partner came in, and it's like, she needs to be fixed. Right?
Interesting.
So sleep wasn't addressed, stress wasn't addressed, but as soon as a change in the couple's sex life happened, then all of a sudden she needed to be fixed, right? And I'm using quotation marks right now.
Because that's the end point,
because
right?
that's the end point.
Yeah, unfortunately.
So for those folks, men and women, and all genders who are tuning in to hear this conversation today and picking up on sexual desire, libido, and that is really interesting and applicable and relevant to their life right now. Where do we start? Where do we, is it in our physician's office? Is it at the kitchen counter? Where do we start having this conversation with one another?
I think women are comfortable talking to each other. Absolutely. They don't show up in the doctor's office unless it's a targeted question. So in our office, it's on the questionnaire.
Right.
We talk about sexual health because we recognize that that's the group of population, of the women that we're seeing. So we address it. But when I was back in general practice, that was not a conversation I
Right.
initiated. And women would come in and they have a 5 or 10 minute appointment with the doctor. It's hard to kind of ease into that. I'm not having sex. I don't feel like having sex.
Right.
The only conversation they do begin with, though, it's painful to have sex.
Right.
So they don't talk about the desire so much.
And
They
even
will
those
talk
conversations are too low.
and they're too low. But they will bring that up
Yes.
because that's a symptom that is, pain will drive someone to a doctor's
Right.
office. So that's where the conversations happen. I think where we can be better is to inform women, having, websites that are like the sexual health.org with Stacey Elliott's group and Rosemary Basson and Lori Brodo. They have a great website. And those, again, evidence-based, science-backed up. And it's not about sex in a sex can be convoluted into many different areas, right? But they're looking at sex through the lens of the hormones, through the women's health perspective. So I like that because it lends credibility to it.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you can go into many sites and you might not know what kind of information you're going to get or what rabbit's hole you're going to go down in those, right? So look for good sites.
For sure. I mean, I love talking about this because it gives us an opportunity to redefine some of these words too. So when we're saying sex, we're saying sometimes with a partner, right?
Yes.
And society might be hearing penis and vagina sex.
Right.
So it's a great opportunity for us and for women to tell each other, right? It doesn't have to be the way you thought of it.
I have a lot of single women in my practice, and I have seen women where their pelvic organs, there's prolapse, there's what we call adhesions. When there's not the hormone, the vulva will tend to fuse together.
Yeah.
So to have healthy sex at all ages is actually good for the pelvic floor.
Yes.
And so it doesn't have to be with a partner. Certainly not, but you still have to keep the vulvar area healthy, and that's where the hormones come in. So even if they don't take systemic hormone therapy, I have 85-year-old women who still use topical estrogen, which is on prescription, and that helps them with their incontinence. And if they do have dilators or vibrators or self-stimulation, that improves their pelvic floor health, so they have less prolapse to worry about in the future.
Yeah. And then they can sit comfortably and move comfortably and choose to have penetrative sex if they want to.
That's right.
That's amazing.
No, great that you're exploring all these other options too.
Okay, so we're going to put your book, The Mind Body Cure, and your TED Talk in the show notes. But I just want to take this opportunity to say thank you so much for lending your time and your expertise to this show. I really, really appreciate it.
It's been an absolute honor. Always something new that comes up with our conversations. So thank you, Shirley.
We will chat again soon.
Okay.
Thank you for listening. I know you have many options for where you spend your time, so I am so grateful you chose this show today. To learn more about my guest, Dr. Bal Pawa, please visit drbalpawa.com and check out all her details in the show notes. And if you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe, do all the things, and follow me on social media at Menopause Chicks. I'd like to say a big thank you to the folks who support this show and share my mission for women's health: Vichy Laboratoire, FerroPro Iron, Feel Amazing Vulva and Vaginal Moisturizer, and Intimate Wellbeing. You can learn more about those organizations in the show notes as well. Plus, a big shout out to the team here at Oh Boy Productions. And remember, someone you know needs this information. Maybe it's you, maybe it's someone you love. So thank you for sharing, and see you next week on This Show Is Not About Menopause. Feel Amazing Vulva and Vaginal Moisturizer. What can I say? This might be one of the proudest projects from Menopause Chicks to date. A few years ago, I asked women what they wanted me to research. The answer was overwhelmingly another solution for vaginal dryness. That's because 86% of women experience vulva and vaginal dryness in postmenopause. And yet, less than 4% have an easy, viable solution. And research shows hyaluronic acid is effective for both the prevention and treatment of dryness. So we took this challenge to a team of pharmacists who created Feel Amazing Vulva and Vaginal Moisturizer with hyaluronic acid and a little vitamin E. It's a product created by a community for its community. And you can learn more at moisturizeyourvagina.com.